Hi, my name is Braxton. I am here with UFLTV, and I'm here interviewing. Do you want to introduce yourself, Jacob?
Yeah, my name is Jacob Hereth. I'm a therapist here at Beehive Family Services in Sandy, Utah.
Wonderful. Well, I have some questions for you. So, my first question is, you hear the term parental alienation used a lot in child custody disputes. Is there a formal definition of this term, or is this something that collectively people have agreed on? Uh, yeah.
Yeah, sure. It can be kind of confusing because there is not a definite term of what parental alienation is. What it's been agreed upon is when we have a parent referred to as the alienating parent, or the preferred parent, and sometimes called as well, will influence the child's um, reactions to the other parent, to where they are then alienating or kind of estranging that parent and making it so that that child wants nothing to do with that
Okay. Um, and you also hear the term estrangement a lot. How is that different from alienation?
parent. Yeah, estrangement is very typical with children from parents. Whereas the child will decide to remove themselves from the parents, um, whether that be emotionally or physically, due to the parent's behavior, due to something that that parent has done to that child. Whereas with alienation, that is not typically the case. When it's in a case of alienation, that parent has not done something typically that has caused the child to remove themselves.
Okay. And how do you determine if parental alienation is occurring in a custody dispute?
That can be really hard to determine. But what we'll typically do is we'll work with a guardian ad litem who will say, "Hey, this is something that we're noticing. We think that there may be some parental alienation." Um, our policy here is that we'll meet with both parents. We kind of listen to how those parents are speaking about each other, um, and then we also meet with the child. And this is after we've looked at the court reports and seen, okay, this is what may be going on. And that can help us to decide how to go about doing some type of therapy called reunification therapy that we do with alienated parents typically.
Okay. How often does parental alienation occur on average? Is it common, or is this something that only happens in rare cases?
So that's not something that we can necessarily say because that how often it's happening, because it often goes overlooked in the courts and also by mental health professionals. Um, where it is directly impacting and has a negative impact on the child, we're finding is actually fairly rare.
Okay. Um, so you talked about the reunification therapy. How does that deal with parental alienation?
Like I said, we'll start with meeting with both of the parents, listening to how they speak about each other, along with the courts, and then we'll talk to the child. And our policy is we meet with the child until they're ready to have that alienated parent, or the non-preferred parent is what I prefer to say. Alienated has a very negative connotation with it. But when we can have that non-preferred or alienated parent in the room with the child, that is where the reunification therapy starts, where we can teach them to start having these conversations to talk about what is really going on rather than the perception from what the other parent has said.
Okay. And do you find that this kind of therapy works the best? Are there different approaches that other people take? Um,
So, yeah, we will there's a couple of kinds of therapy that we'll typically do in these types of situations. The first is the reunification therapy. It works. It works well if both of the people are on board. If the parent and the child can get on the same page, which is one of the hardest things with reunification therapy, is getting them on the same page and helping them to be able to have these conversations. Whereas the other type of therapy that we'll do is we often remove the child from it and do something called co-parenting therapy. And that's where we're going to sit down with both of the parents and we're going to teach them the skills that they need so that they can parent together while also staying in their own lanes. This is called parallel parenting, where they can, they can be on board with each other and they can speak, they can keep the child out of the personal issues because that's the main thing with co-parenting is keep that child out of the personal issues. When we have that child getting into the personal issues, that's where we start getting that alienated parent and where we're needing the reunification therapy.
Okay. Well, that it's good to know that there are different approaches that can happen because
Mhm.
sometimes some things don't work with people, and especially if you're like court ordered to go to therapy. I know a lot of people can be resistant to that. So if you're engaging in therapy, what do you need to do to be successful? If you truly want it to be successful, you're not just sitting there running out the clock.
Yeah, in order for it to truly be successful, there needs to be an open line of communication between the child and the parent who is alienated, where they can have those conversations. And a lot of it is teaching them the conversation skills, such as um, we refer to it as the drama triangle, which is a triangle that we get ourselves caught into that keeps the arguments going again and again and again. um, where we can teach them to focus on the feeling rather than the act, or rather than, you did this. And teaching not only the parent, but also the child to take accountability and take like the control back of the situation and say, rather than you did this and you did this, saying, hey, I'm upset that this happened. And that then gives them the power back and it allows the child to feel like they have a say in what's going on, which absolutely has to happen in order for reunification therapy to work.
All right. How does parental alienation factor into a child custody evaluation?
So, as someone who is a therapist and not a custody evaluator, that's not something I can really answer because custody evaluators, they have a different set of training to look
Okay.
at more things. So that's not something that I really can play into.
Okay. Have you ever had any interactions with a child custody evaluator where they've asked your
I
advice on
I have
something?
not.
Okay.
Um, I try to typically stay out of the custody. My role as a therapist, I tell them, is I'm here for the child. I'm here to help the child to feel comfortable. And whether that be, hey, I need to be able to tell this parent, you really have hurt me, and I don't think that I can rebuild that relationship. Or if it's I want to rebuild this relationship. I want to have a strong relationship with you. So I really leave that custody evaluation to those people who have that training.
Okay. Um, do you ever get the impression that parents are trying to use mental health professionals to frame a good parent as a bad parent or, vice versa?
Yeah, and that definitely can happen to where parents will do that. Um, I I like to believe that that is a fairly rare occurrence because the parents really looking out for and really looking out for the child and what's in their best interest. And so when we have a parent coming in and saying, I think this child needs some help, we try to go with that good faith with them because as a therapist, we need to be as neutral as possible to where we can look at things and we can say, okay, this parent is trying the best that they can, you know?
Yeah. So, I know we already talked about the kinds of therapy that you use to deal with parental alienation. What are some of the distinguishing features, specifically of like the co-parenting and then the parallel parenting kind of therapies?
Yeah. So the parallel parenting and co-parenting are the same thing. Um, so
Okay.
what it is helping them to be able to focus on the child rather than the differences that they're having, allowing them to really focus and say, okay, well, what does the child need? Regardless of what's going on between us, how can we best help the child? And having those conversations of, okay, why, you know, obviously this relationship didn't work, but how can we come together for the goal of making sure that the child has the best set of parents and the skills that they need in order to thrive in their life?
Wonderful. So you're a court-approved therapist, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. How do you become a court-approved therapist?
So, first of all, you have to have a degree that allows you to do therapy.
Okay.
I personally have my degree in social work. I have a master's degree in social work, but there's others who go and they get their marriage and family therapy or um, their CMHC, which is clinical mental health therapist, um,
Okay.
or counseling, clinical mental health counselor. And so that's the start. You first have to be able to do the therapy, and then you go and you do training that will allow you to be court approved. Most people go through AFCC, which is the Association of Family Concealment Courts, um, which is the largest group that trains in this. Um, so once you have that training and you've gone through that training and get certified by them, then you can begin to be court approved.
Okay. Are there any special qualifications required to become a court-approved one, or is there any like special qualifications that you can get to do other certain kinds of therapy?
Yeah, so obviously as therapists we have to continue our education. And so we should really be always looking and studying into how the best research, the new research that is coming in and is the best practice for family therapy, for individual therapy as well, and looking at it and really learning to look at things from a trauma informed perspective where we can be really open with our clients and really look for the best in them
Oh,
and
wonderful.
learning some of that empathetic skills.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So that was all of my questions. So,
Okay.
all right. Well, if you want to introduce yourself one more time for everybody
Yeah.
else watching. Yeah.
Yeah. My name is Jacob Hereth. I'm a therapist here at Beehive Family Services in Sandy. Um, we have a great team that works with all kinds of issues, whether they be family issues or individual therapy issues. Um, yeah, you can find me on Psychology Today, or you just look up Beehive Family Services. Um, it's really simple to find us there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much.